a lot of them are not realizing that there's so much more to running a business than the actual product or service that they're offering. Right. So what's that E-myth? Michael Gerber, I
Michael
think, is
Gerber. Yep.
the entrepreneurial myth is that you just think you can just step in and do it on my own. I can do it better than my boss does or what have you. And they jump into it and they realize, oh, I've got marketing that I have to do. I've got to do HR. I've
Mhm.
got to do, the books every month. All those other aspects holistically. That's what I think a lot of companies are finding it to be challenging
Yeah.
for, or a lot of owners are finding challenging.
Yeah, it's that technical expert that jumps in and has the desire to make a difference in the world
Right.
and don't realize that all of the other cogs.
Other aspects that come in and impact what they're doing. It can be frustrating,
Mhm.
and it can be, they get disheartened if things aren't going their way.
Welcome to the Wright Show. I am Wright, and I am so excited about today's conversation. But before we get there, a message to the collective that I have is really surrounding some conversations that I've been having in my Clarity Path program. This is a program for business owners, and we are moving from our values and our clarity into structure. And something that is coming up for a lot of those business owners is getting to organization and standardizing things. And so I want to throw this out to the collective, and I'm really excited for my guests because we're going to have a great conversation about business, is being able to prioritize and time block. It's going to save a ton of time for you in terms of organizing your day, your week, and it will also create structures so that if it's in your calendar at a specific time, you have no choice but to sit down and do it. Cuts a lot of the clutter and noise. But I'm very excited to have Mervyn Brice from Forethought Coaching and Consulting with me because we're going to have a conversation all about business coaching and consulting today. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And I mean, we play in the same arena.
We do.
And it is so much fun to be able to have you here today. Talk to me a little bit about Forethought.
Forethought Consulting. I named it Forethought Consulting because of all the things I was doing prior to my role in Forethought. I'm a career project manager by trade, primarily in the industry of IT, information technology. And ironically, I'm not an IT person. I'm a social science guy. My degree is in psychology and communications. So when I was doing my project management work or account management work, I was always sort of learning some lessons the hard way. And I always thought, boy, if I could kind of go back and do that again, I would, be proactive and have more forethought towards what I need to do and get ahead of the game rather than sort of reactive, be proactive. So when I decided that I was going to go kind of consult and get incorporated, I thought, well, forethought consulting, because, thinking about those things that a lot of people don't think about, or they think about it after the fact and realize, oh, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had done that. So Forethought's been around for quite some time. 2001, I got incorporated and sort of jumped around between management consulting for full-time FTE work, or as just a side hustle, side gig. Again, usually as project management. But I'm moving more towards, or was moving more towards, the things that really I found as a project manager were really challenging. Challenging in the sense of, if we were to do something properly for the right time, you could save a lot of time and money. Project management is ideally sort of that triple constraint: time, scope, budget. And usually one invariably affects the other two. And 9 times out of 10, whatever project I was working on would, have some sort of a consequence that was negative. And I always thought, boy, if we could just do something a little bit more proactive with that, and get ahead of it, we could avoid some of those pitfalls, either financially or scope creep or whatever. So that's what I've been doing in a variety of ways for, 25 years now, 26 years, I guess. And it's been quite a ride. When people say, "Oh, what do you do?" and I say, "Oh, work primarily in IT," and I give them sort of my history, they're like, "Oh, I can't imagine kind of how you got started." But it's been good. It's been a lot of fun, and you know, entering a new chapter as more of a coach, business coaching, working with some of those owners and operators of small business, small to medium sized businesses, and maybe helping them in some of those areas that the larger corporations, the larger enterprises, you're just a bit of a small cog in the big machine, Karis. And I've been there, done that. I want to be more impactful sooner, and I just wanted to make that shift. This point in my career, I'm able to do that, and so I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the transition for sure.
Mm. The shift that you've had to working from larger organizations to smaller organizations, what has actually been most rewarding about that change?
Again, I think just being more impactful
Mhm.
sooner.
Mm.
Um, a lot of the lessons that I've learned, the hard way sometimes. I'm really working with smaller, business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, to avoid some of those challenges upfront, or try to at least be better prepared for them, and anticipate rather than sort of react. So that's been really rewarding, is to be able to say, "Oh, have you considered this? Have you thought of this?" And that way they can just be better prepared and have a better idea of what to expect or how to deal with something, a lot of the challenges that they have. So that's the biggest one for me,
Mhm.
I think, Karis.
It's interesting because we work in a lot of the same ways in terms of that taking a step back, having the forethought before taking the right step.
Right.
You see what I did
Very
there?
good. Well done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what are you noticing some of the things with your coaching and consulting clients that are coming up?
A lot of them are not realizing that there's so much more to running a business than the actual product or service that they're offering. Right. So what's that myth? Michael Gerber, I
Michael
think, is
Gruber? Yep.
the entrepreneurial myth, is that you just think you can just step in and do it on my own. I can do it better than my boss does, or what have you. And they jump into it and they realize, oh, I've got marketing that I have to do. I've got to do HR. I've
Mhm.
got to do, the books every month. All those other aspects holistically, that's what I think a lot of companies are finding it to be challenging for, or a lot of owners are finding challenging.
Yeah, it's that technical expert that jumps in and has the desire to make a difference in the world
Right.
and don't realize that all of the other
Other
cogs in that.
aspects that come in and impact what they're doing. It can be frustrating, and,
Mhm.
and it can be, they get disheartened if things aren't going their way. Time goes by and money goes out the door, and they're like, "Oh, can I keep on doing this?" So that's the one thing I noticed the most,
Yes.
for me.
Yeah. When I think about E-Myth, because Michael E. Gerber is a huge part of system business coach
Right, right,
philosophy, is really about starting with that why, getting that clarity aspect of that in, and then also looking at the interconnections between how the business runs. So something that goes sideways in your finance, it's going to ripple effect over to your
yes,
operations, your
absolutely,
marketing.
absolutely,
It's going to have a ripple effect into your leadership, whether that's self-leadership for our solopreneurs or otherwise.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I've found a lot of the companies and the businesses that I've worked with, whether it's the larger ones or the smaller ones, they're always sort of thinking about either, just is it profitable? Can I make ends meet? What have you? And there's so much more to it than that. And it's a matter of getting them to think more holistically, 360 degrees, rather than sort of that one thing at the end. Well, there's steps towards getting there. And have you thought about other aspects of it? It's not just about the dollars and cents and profitability. There's other areas that they need to consider. And I find that a lot of companies don't necessarily look at that, or at least not enough.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely. As a systems business coach, I have a tendency to focus a lot on the process. And so, with you having a project management approach, walk me through what your clients would experience.
that's a good question. A lot of times they've already got a solution in mind,
Mm.
and it's usually an IT or technical solution in mind. So they come back and they just say, "Oh, we need to build this new piece of software, or we need to implement this new system." And you talked about why, right? The
Mhm.
whole Simon Sinek, So I try to pull them back and say, well, wait a second, what are you guys actually trying to accomplish here? How you get there is one thing, but what's the motivation? You have to have that as the foundation first, in my opinion. But they're always ready to solution. They're always ready to, let's do this. We need to code this and build this, and it'll take 3 months. And I was like, okay, it sounds like what do you need me for, right? So I try to just walk them back and walk through and understand sort of the steps involved. You determine what your why is, then you come back and you go, okay, these are my requirements associated with that. This is what we're going to need from this department or from this stakeholder. Then you plan it out. Then you actually have your, how much time and effort is it going to take? And you do that sort of linearly, and then put that all together. And then I execute it as a project manager. So those are the areas that I tend to focus on. One of the things, Karis, that I always find, at the end of a project or towards the end of a project is people's attention is already on the next initiative or the next thing. But if you close out a project and really work and apply the lessons learned, you can avoid, again, some of those pitfalls, or you can make sure you're doing some things proactively to make things smoother. Because if you have any success with a project, likely you'll get handed another project again, right? So why not leverage what you've just learned or what you've done in the past so that you can, again, fine-tune, refine, make it more effective, make it more efficient. Those are the things that I like to do. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's kind of the process I like to follow anyway.
The value of doing a postmortem.
Yes.
Be able to take
100%.
an opportunity to learn what worked, what didn't work, what tweaks would you have done, and you can apply those next time.
I apply that with everything that I do. I do volunteer. I volunteer as a coach with the local high school. And one of the things that I talked to the head coach about when I first joined his staff at the end of a season, I said, hey, coach, do you ever kind of step back with the coaching staff and do a look back or a lessons learned? And he was like, oh, okay, no, I haven't really done that. And now they've been doing it ever since 08 or 09, we've been doing it, right? So it just matters. You learn from what your mistakes are, things that you can improve upon, and you leverage that in the off season, and you're that much better for the next season. So it's no different with, whatever, if it's for profit, not for profit, sports.
Sports,
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know about you, but we use it at home as well, right?
Yeah.
So what's working, what's not working?
Yeah. Well, my wife, you mentioned that my wife has a sort of, we get the family meeting together every once in a while at the dinner table. And of course, all the eyes roll. But, we talk about, hey, this is something I'm noticing, or we're struggling with this, or have you noticed that? And we need to address this. And it works. So yeah, you do it at home as well.
Have you also applied a premortem?
No, I've got a life plan. I've got a life plan that my wife and I did. Well, actually, we need to renew it, but we did it about 15 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago. And we look at it, I look at it as a PM. It's just in my DNA. I look at it probably once a year. My wife, not so much. But yeah, we have sort of a life plan, what we want to do, where we want to be in certain parts of our lives. How about you?
I love that you've got a life plan and the premortem concept, because we do the same thing.
Okay.
So it's an annual meeting that we get together and we talk about what's the goals ahead, what's working, what's not working. And even actually before we got married, it was to understand, is this, where are we actually going in the same life plan or the path? Some of our viewers may be going what's going on? These coaches are a little weird. So, but what's the benefit of that?
Right. I just think that, if you're not on the same page with your partner, or whoever is on your, whatever team you're on, business or personal, social, what have you, it just makes things a lot more difficult, right? And how do you expect to reach whatever your goals or your ambitions are if you're not aligned in what it is and then how you're going to get there? So it just, people will call me a little bit weird when it comes to that, because I do bring some of those things to sports. The coaching staff, they say, oh, Mervyn, that's come on, over the top, Mervyn. You got this life plan or things that you've done to prep for a game or prep for an upcoming season. But I just find it makes a difference. It works for me. And if you don't have to do it literally step by step, but just the concept of it and having some sort of an idea, okay, what do I want to do and how do I want to get there? And how's it going along the way as well, right?
Absolutely.
Getting off track or what have you. So I just find it's worked successfully for me.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's that concept of being able to understand what is it that you need, how are you connecting to those around you, If there's not alignment, let's have that conversation, like the preemptive friction
Right.
conversation. And if it's a project, so I'm thinking of several non-for-profits that I sat on here in Okotoks, and we'd have a gala or something like that. You'd run through a premortem just to, okay, what are things that potentially could go wrong?
Right.
So that we can sidestep those.
Right.
Or make sure, oh, has somebody got this?
Right.
So why wouldn't you do that in your own life?
I'm a big proponent of it. You mentioned sort of, things that are like social events or what have you. I also volunteer. I'm on the board with the hospice, the Foothills Country Hospice here, just outside of town. And as a board member, again, I look at a lot of aspects. They come at me from a sort of IT. Well, Mervyn, what should we do in an IT perspective? But they even have special events, and I say, oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Because I've seen it in the past, and you just want to avoid some of the challenges or prepare for them. And if you don't know that, even think about it, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So again, they find a lot of value with just bringing some of those things to the forefront that they may not have thought about otherwise. So yeah, I look at things holistically. That's who I am, and that's kind of how I like to live my life.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
I'm not going to make excuses for that.
No, be unapologetic. Be completely unapologetic about that. What I'm looking at this through is risk management from a project management standpoint.
Okay.
And then for me being a banker, we would always look at underwriting or any sort of compliance from a risk management standpoint. And that's coming up for me as well. It's how can we mitigate risk?
Yeah.
And that comes back to business. How do you mitigate the risk in business?
Right.
So we've been talking a lot about the consulting side. And you're shifting over to coach. I've been a coach for a while. And what are you noticing that transition from consultant to coach for yourself has been?
Well, the consulting side is more where they actually want you to provide them something. Like they're coming to you for some level of expertise. And at the end of the day, you provide something tangible to them. On the coaching side, it's a little bit more where they're sort of looking for you for maybe advice or guidance. And you actually just walk them through, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And helps them to be more proactive and learn and think about things and what's the best way for me to prepare for whatever it is I'm trying to do, in this case, for my business or for my whatever I'm leading as a group. So I find the coaching side is a little bit less sort of no tangible sort of physical things that I'm maybe providing them at the end of the day, but it's more a sounding board, a third party, somebody that's more objective, right? That's not going to pass judgment. I'm going to be there to listen. If you want my advice, these are some things. What I like to say is, well, these are some things that I've gone through in my experience, and if it relates to them, then they can leverage off that. But I try to focus on more that, this Socratic questioning. So open-ended, make them sort of think about ways that they could pursue something that they haven't thought about before. And it just opens things up for them. And those are the areas that I find as a coach that are really beneficial for my clients.
So I'm gonna challenge you a little bit on this because I'm hearing a little mentoring, advising mixed in with the coaching there. So for our audience, maybe let's dive through where that delineating line is, because there's a difference between pure coaching and that mixture that a lot of us coaches have. That is a little bit of advisory, a little bit of mentoring. So the Socratic coaching is, in my perspective, is a little more aligned with pure coaching.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
So because when I look at this, and I will admit, I do a blend of coaching and advisory depending on the situation.
Right.
So when are you pure coach? When are you mentor coach? When are you consultant?
That hat varies all the time for me, Karis. I don't necessarily, I just can't sort of turn off one and transition to another. And when I'm sort of working with my clients, I typically let them lead. I let them follow where they're going. Even at the beginning of a session, I'll say, hey, so what do we want to work on? This is what we talked about maybe last week or whatever we spoke last. But is that what you want to talk about right now? Or what's currently kind of just gnawing at you or challenging that you want to, need some help overcoming? So I have a difficult time. I I can't say, oh, okay, this is the coaching aspect of it. Now we get into the pure consulting aspect of it or the mentoring aspect of it. I personally, it sort of just flows. Sometimes I'm not even sure. I just follow the lead of my client. So I don't know how successful you are with that, but to be able to sort of have sort of specific, areas to move from one to another, it's more fluid for me.
Yeah, I would say that it depends on the contracting that I'm doing with the clients. So I'm not going to say I'm 100% successful at it because we're human,
Right.
right? There's a humanity aspect of wanting to help, and somebody, when you're using those Socratic questions, those non-directive questions, to
Right.
have somebody else pull out and glean answers from themselves, their own mandate. And really, I do believe that we have the answers within ourselves. There's an element of wanting to help.
Yes.
Right? You just want to, oh, they're struggling. I know they know the answer. I know they're going to come up with their own solution here, but I want to support.
Right.
And so what I've found is really helpful is for me to ask that question. I'm noticing that that you're struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
And so what do you need right now?
I tend to use a lot of active listening.
Yeah.
And like you had mentioned before, there are times, especially when I was getting started in the coaching realm, where I just wanted to jump in, and help them with solutioning or to do it and produce something. But I really sort of learned to and discipline myself to be, step back. You may know the answer, I may know the answer, or have an idea, but I'm not going to oversee, push that. I let them come up with that solution. There's a gentleman that I guess you could say he was a bit of my mentor. I worked with him when I was at H&R Block Canada. And it wasn't until I got into the coaching realm myself that I realized he was doing a lot of those things with me. I would go in and we have one-on-ones. I reported into him at the time. And he would, again, that sort of Socratic coaching style, he would sort of ask me, again, those open-ended questions, or he would say, have you thought about this? Or, is there an alternate way that maybe you can pursue this? And I wound up coming up with another idea that he already knew. He already knew it was there, but he just waited and let me come through with it. And now that I'm in that role myself, I said, oh, okay, I know what you were doing back then, when we were doing it. And now I'm on that other side of the table. So it's very interesting.
Isn't it funny? I think for myself, I think my biggest teachers, because I've been coaching started out as a sales coach and then moved into a leadership business coach over, since 2010. And it wasn't until I actually had teenagers
Okay.
that because they don't want to be told the answers.
No,
They
heck
want to
no.
figure it all out.
Yeah.
So, being able to step back and asking those questions, even though that what's going to happen is the worst thing ever. But it's like we got to just trust that they have the answers within themselves and we can pick up when something goes sideways.
Experiential learning.
The experiential learning.
They do not want to hear it from mom and dad.
No.
But, funny enough, I'm sure you find this as well. You could say the exact same thing and, or their friend or somebody else can say the exact same thing. And all of a sudden it's, oh, okay, yeah. And you're like, I just told you that 2 weeks ago or whatever, right? So, yeah, my son, ironically, he literally just moved out. He was in the house and he's just taken on a new role with some roommates in a condo out west. And we know he's going to run through all these sort of things that are going to be like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And he's going to come back on weekends and raid our fridge and say, oh, thanks, mom and dad. I hadn't run into this. I hadn't experienced that before until you. And I know my wife especially is going to be like, I told you so. But you have to let them go and let them learn on their own.
Let them go and learn. I hear you, and good on you. We've got 3 that have launched so far.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We are empty nesters officially as of March 1st, yesterday.
What's that like?
It was, I think it was harder on my wife. I was like, oh, okay, one of these kids gonna, of course, no, it was a little, it's quieter. There's no doubt about it. But everybody goes through it, right? That rite of passage. So, yeah, they'll do fine. My daughter left last summer, and now, my son just moved out last weekend. So we'll see how things go. That's
exciting. Well, we still have one at home. We share custody with him half time.
Okay.
And so we've got another 5 years until he launches and heads on to whatever his next adventure is. But yes, And so, linking us back to what we were talking about is those questions, those non-directive
Right.
questions of just being able to have others understand what they want to come up with and how they want to respond to situations. And I think that's helpful for business owners,
Oh, 100%.
especially as they're trying to figure out, moving from that technical expert, moving into guiding their own team,
Right.
creating their own vision, doing those things, is they've got to figure out what those are themselves.
Oh, yeah. I find that
So,
a lot of my clients, they ask me questions like, hey, Mervyn, have you ever run into this? Or how did you deal with that? And it's funny, over the evolution of my relationships with my clients, it does start a little bit more technical in nature.
mhm,
Excuse me, maybe where it's more consultative, where I'm just sort of providing them with some sort of service or something. And then after a while, you build up some trust and you build up the relationship. And then they're kind of open up a little bit more and talk a
mhm,
little bit on a perspective that maybe isn't always work related or for their
mhm,
business or for their operations. And say, oh, I'm struggling with this, or I've got this one employee that I'm really having a difficult time, or what have you. Have you ever run into this, Mervyn? And then, again, I just sort of say, well, maybe not specifically, but in this sort of scenario, I've got something, and this is how I dealt with it. These are some options. What do you think is the best way to
mhm,
go about it as well, right? And I think they value that. It's less threatening, and they can take it or they can leave it. But a lot of times I find that they run with it and they say, oh, okay, Mervyn, that was great advice. And I speak to them the next time. So I did that, or I took that suggestion and, it really helped, or that didn't help at all. But at least I learned from it,
mhm.
right? What to do and what not to do. So, um, yeah, it's
Yeah,
dynamic. I
yeah.
like that aspect of coaching for sure.
I love that. I love that. Similar situations arise, and I take a slightly different approach, in which is, we'll explore, well, what's one avenue, what's
Right.
another avenue you can explore, what's a third option. I use you talked about Socratic coaching. I tend to use something called appreciative inquiry,
Okay.
or the grow method.
Good.
I mean,
There's
there's
lots.
so many
There's
different out
lots.
there, but I found that those really work.
Right.
Be able to get the juices flowing, kind of look at a dream state, and then navigate through what the best options are for them. And then if I have some advice, I'll actually fire an email
Okay.
over afterwards, or a framework, or something that I think would be additive to the decision that they've made.
Right.
So then all of a sudden it becomes uh, an extra, like a value add, as opposed to me providing that advice. But what I love about this is that we have two different approaches that are both valid.
Right. That's interesting. Just listening to,
Yeah.
again, I was trying to, okay, I've got my thoughts. I'm going to hold off before I jump in. But do you change sort of your method, whether it's Socratic or, what have you, depending on the client and then depending on the situation with the client, right? Have you ever kind of mixed it up and kind of run, or you say, oh, this client, I'm always going to work in this sort of approach or methodology with this client versus someone else?
Do you know, that's a really interesting question, and one that I've been navigating right now as I'm working through my master's in counseling psychology,
Okay.
and I have two back-to-back methodology classes.
Okay.
And that is something that has been popping up for me as I think about therapy. Do I mix different modalities,
Right.
CBT or anything else? And I'm like, okay, I hadn't actually thought about that, how I approach my coaching. And I would say because of doing this for so many years, I've got my toolkit, and I will take my response based off of the client, what
Right.
they need, and as well as the client situation. So, is there a framework or a formula? No. Is it a trusting my own intuition of what they need and then asking,
Sure.
right? Because I don't want to make an assumption. Because we all know what assumptions,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, it,
Um,
yeah,
that
that's a
is,
great question.
well, I
How about
ask it.
yourself?
Well, I ask it because I haven't, admittedly, only 2.5 years in. I don't know if
Mhm.
I've had enough experience, enough clients to be able to sort of say, oh, I'm going to pull this out of my toolbox for this client, or I'm going to pull that out of my toolbox for this client. So for the longer people that have been doing it longer, those are the kind of things that I really would be interested in. And is it even fair to the client to say, well, I'm going to now have you, this is the way I think you are going to be most responsive. So I'm going to work with you in that way. But are you willing to maybe try it a little bit different every once in a while and say, oh, that didn't work at all? Or, wow, okay, this is actually proven successful.
So I'm going to answer this with two schools of thought. First one is the one time I will use a framework is when I'm doing targeted coaching.
Okay.
So targeted coaching, different than free-formatted coaching.
Right.
Free-formatted or the client comes in with their topic or whatever they want to do, and then we coach through that.
Right.
Targeted coaching tends to happen when, and I've done this in 4 or 5 different programs that I've supported or consulted in, where they've got a specific framework that they need to go through. So you've got to coach through that framework. So it tends to be a little more guided,
Yep.
in terms of what the response is. But I would also say that it really does depend on the relationship with the client, what they're needing, and what the agreed upon, like it comes right back to what the agreed upon relationship at the very beginning. At the beginning of the session, as well as the beginning of the long-term coaching contract. So if they have contracted me for pure coaching and we're drifting into consultant work or more advice work, I have to stop and clarify that, because it starts to work on integrity and am I breaching any of the rules of the ICF? And I know you work with a governing body.
That's right.
So I think there's an integrity piece there.
Yeah.
There's also a morality piece. And, I can't necessarily give somebody advice because I've never really walked a mile in their shoes.
Yeah.
So it's here's my thought on this.
Right. There's also an ethics aspect of it as well that we need to, follow as well as professionals. So as accredited coaches. Also, group coaching would be challenging as well, right? If you've got a handful that you're doing some sort of group session, but each of them, that'd be too difficult, I think. You'd have to go down a path and just run with it.
It becomes more targeted coaching, right? So because of the nature of group is very treated very differently. But how do you approach that?
I haven't done enough group coaching to be able to get into that sort of variety. I typically we have a topic that we're working on. If it's maybe business development or what have you, and we discuss that for our session. But no, I haven't sort of gone into different aspects of it with groups as well. So that's why I'm always looking to talk to other coaches, say, hey, how have you dealt with it with this or that scenario? For sure.
That's fair. One thing I do want to talk about, because I know there was a reason why you and I both decided to register with a governing body.
Yes.
Anybody can hang their hat as their shingle out.
I see that a lot on
people's
bios and their websites and this coach. I said, well, are you really a coach? Like, I actually took courses and I got certified. I had to take a test and everything. I had to put in X number of hours. Have you done that? Not so much.
Right. What made you choose to go to a regulated body?
I just think that validation, right? And for clients, if they're looking to talk with you, they're looking to decide and put their money towards coaching or coaching, they want to know that this person actually knows his stuff and is truly not just some sort of fly by night. He or she has done the work, they put in the time, and they're coming to you professionally. I have my BRM, business relationship management certification, and I have my PMP certification as well, project management certification. And those are very key whenever you're applying for something, especially as a consultant. They like to see the little letters behind your name to know that, this person has put in the work, right? They do their accreditation and they do their, 60 hours that we have to build up every 3 years to make sure that we're still holding up our end of it. So that's the real reason, because anybody can be a coach or call themselves a coach, but have you done the work? Can you truly justify that title?
Really appreciate you saying that, because that is in 100% alignment with my thoughts on that as well. And I think there's also an element of not just credibility, but protection for the public. Right? To be able to say if I'm not receiving the right support or advice, I have a governing body to go and talk to. Raise concerns with. And there's also requirements, like there's supervisory coaching number of hours. You have to do continuing education. You have to do mentor coaching to renew that licensing. So
absolutely. The association that I'm with in Canada, they follow a lot of those things. I'm sure at ICF, the huge governing body there. And
Yes.
it makes a difference.
It
I
does.
value it for sure.
Yeah, I do. I do as well. And I think that's something really important to highlight for the public to just be aware of, that there are requirements, and it is there for protection for them, as well as to confirm that we've done the work.
Right.
We've put
Some of
in
the
that.
some of the coaches in my association, the PBCA of Canada, some of the coaches have told me, hey Mervyn, when in your business cards or on your website, your web presence, make sure that you know it's certified business
Yes.
coach, right? Professional business coach, because it matters.
It does matter.
So
It does matter. So we have been doing a segment the last couple of episodes called Questions from the Audience.
okay,
Are you ready for
I
this?
am ready.
All right. Okay, first one comes from Megan. She is stuck, and more stuck. First off, do you get this way? Like, how do you get into being stuck, and what do you do to get unstuck in your business?
Uh, I personally, if I'm challenged with some aspect of my business, my operation, what have you, I'd like to step back and away from it and just take a collective breath. I exercise, I go for walks, or we just do something outside of the work. Sometimes it just gives you a fresh perspective. You look at it from maybe 40,000 feet rather than when you're in the minutia of it, it's difficult to see what's going on, right? So sometimes just step out of it, do something different, collect yourself, take some deep breaths, go somewhere, and you come back fresher and with a clearer head. That works for me personally. Everybody's got their own sort of strategy, but that one is one that I go to quite a bit.
I love that. Take a step back and then come with a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
I would, it's actually very practical advice. I would also add, do you have a plan? 'Cause
Right.
you might be feeling stuck because you don't have a plan.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And so, same philosophy on, you may be in the business. If you do have a plan and you're working in the business, you're feeling stuck, zoom out and look back at the plan.
You know, Karis, you touched on something. When we first met last summer, we went for coffee,
Yeah.
and you asked me that question. You said, what's your plan? What are you trying to do? Where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself? I'd never forgotten that. And that's something that you need to step back and you have someone else kind of provide that perspective for you. Because again, I just said, when you're in it, sometimes you can't see it. So you need somebody else that can kind of look at it objectively and say, hey, where are you going? What are you trying to do? I bounce obviously a lot of things off professionally with my wife as well. And she kind of gives me that fresh perspective that people, when you're in it, you just don't see it or don't understand. And she just asks certain questions. Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Okay.
So I couldn't agree more.
So I'm going to say for Megan, we've got 3 suggestions. One, walk away, take a breather,
Right.
cut yourself a little slack.
Absolutely.
B, revisit your plan. And C, get an independent third party, whether it's your family, a friend,
Somebody you
or
trust.
a coach,
Somebody you trust.
to be able to help support you in getting unstuck.
Yep.
I love this. Burnout has been a hot topic as of late. How do I know if I'm burnt out or if I'm just avoiding doing the hard part? This is from Mike.
Ooh, that's a great question, Mike. Well, we just touched on it. Like, you don't know what you don't know. If you're in it, sometimes you can't see it, right? So I think if you're burnt out, you'll know because perhaps your personality is a bit different. You're changed in terms of personality. The types of things that you used to like to do, maybe you don't like as much, or they become more of a chore or a burden than something that you really enjoyed, whether it's work or otherwise. And again, maybe bouncing it off of somebody that you trust, somebody that knows you really, really well, and just say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Are you noticing anything as well? And being willing to open up and ask those kind of questions. I think that would be the approach that I would take. And if somebody's close to you that, can see some of those things, they're going to let you know, right? If you're maybe just being a bit of a jerk or just something that, that's not Mervyn or what have you, that's not Karis, they'll call you on it, I would think. And if they're not, then they should be. So yeah, I think just stepping back and having different perspective coming from different people is probably the best way to do if you're burnt out.
I'm laughing because I used to be a bank manager here in town. I ran the TD for 4 years, many moons ago. And my staff knew when I was hangry, and they
Angry.
had a stash of chocolate
Food.
bars and food because it was necessary. And so is it, just that opportunity to step out.
Right.
But in seriousness, to Mike, what I would say is there's actually 7 different types of rest that we need. And is it that burnt out, that physical rest? Is it something different? Do you need to get out into nature? Do you need to connection with somebody else? Do you need to walk away? Is it spiritual rest? Is it actual? So Sandra Dalton, and we'll put a link to this and go through all 7 different types of rest that is needed. Really important. So it may just be overwhelm. Is it overwhelm? Is it burnt out? What does your body need?
Right.
Um,
That was the book that we had talked about. Remember,
Yes.
I finished. I think that was the same book, or was it a different one?
Well, I think we talked about Sandra Dalton's 7 Type of Rest. We also talked about Insight.
There was another one. I thought there was
and
another one.
Shattered.
That's the one. That's the one
Yes, by
that you
Tara Urich.
Urich. That's the one that
Yes.
you had recommended, and I went through that, and there's a lot of similarities in that as well. Her book talked about sort of when you're really overexposed, or when you're going sort of down a path, and your physical health, your mental health are being challenged, and obviously the mind controls the body. And if you're just not well in various different ways for whatever reason, it manifests itself, physically with aches, with pains, with what have you. And she went through that as well. She talked about that quite a bit. She had a debilitating EDS, I think it was called, that she couldn't get diagnosed with her doctor. She went to various doctors, and finally she saw a specialist and was able to diagnose her properly. And she's like, this weight off her shoulders, I finally know, and she can attack it and deal with it. So it definitely, you'll know when you're struggling. So
Yes.
yeah, for sure.
Yes, there is. And we actually just had a acupuncturist on last week who was talking exactly about that our bodies have a tendency to hold on to our emotions.
100%.
And it comes out in really weird ways.
Yeah, different ways.
Absolutely. Our last question here. How do I stay consistent with my business when my life is chaotic and unpredictable? From Lisa.
Consistent. Stay consistent. I think having that discipline to find things on a regular routine, even when you've got a whole bunch of turbulence and chaos happening around you. I mentioned earlier that, I like to go work out, and that's one of those things that you treat yourself, you do that for yourself first, and you don't start to give in and maybe have some, limit yourself with other areas. Find the things that are very, very important and stick to your guns and stick to those areas. That would probably be, well, for me, one of my definite recommendations or suggestions. There are a lot of different areas that you can go with that, but I think that's finding some consistency when everything else around you is going a little bit chaotic, and ask some of those questions, those things that you just mentioned. Talk to different people again that you trust and have relationships with, and have them sort of help you or guide you through whatever it is that you're maybe challenged with. Be willing to be vulnerable. I think that is something that in this day and age, especially coming out of the post-COVID time, so much mental health and challenges that way. I think just being willing to open up and to admit, hey, I need some help here. And, find that from people, again, that you trust and that you will be able to provide you that support. That's the approach that I would take. What about you, Karis?
Yeah, I really do like that. There's a signal that's happening with chaotic and unpredictable. What I'm thinking about is simplifying.
Right.
So what is actually essential for you to do? Prioritize. And get it into the calendar.
Right.
Right? So a little bit more of a practical approach. When we're feeling chaotic and things are unpredictable, we need to get some stability.
Right.
So the first thing, what can we stabilize?
There's this 4 quadrants. Who's Deming? I think it's Deming's 4 quadrants. I think it's Deming. Where you've got
Eisenhower matrix.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So you've got your prioritize, you're planning your quadrant, upper right quadrant.
Yeah.
You've got your, do it immediately. It has to get done today quadrant. Then you've got your lower left is, I'll do that when I've got some spare time. And then you've got your lower right quadrant where it's like, if you can not avoid it or not even do it at all, then get it off your list.
Yeah.
And just have, even if you got one or two of those things, and just focus on the quadrants and say, what's the most important thing for me to do? That helps. I've got that little sort of matrix or that quadrants on my desk, and I look at that every day. And at the end of it, when it is chaotic, just say, okay, did I at least accomplish this one thing, this important thing today, and prioritize that way? That works for me. So I recommend that. I had a workshop 2 months ago where I told some of the owners, say, hey, work on this matrix, the Eisenhower matrix.
Do, delegate, defer, ditch.
A ditch. That's right. Get rid of.
Absolutely. Mervyn, I am so grateful to have had this opportunity to sit down with you. I'm hoping you're willing to come back and hang out.
Yeah, I love just to talk and talk shop for sure.
Right.
Bounce ideas off of a fellow coach.
So if somebody wants to find you, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Mervyn at forethought.ca. Forethought.ca at my website. And I'm in LinkedIn as well.
In LinkedIn?
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and continue to lead with heart.